Gorilla Monsoon. Robert James Marella, June 4, 1937 – October 6, 1999, better known by his ring name of Gorilla Monsoon, was an American professional wrestler, play-by-play commentator, and booker. Monsoon is famous for his run as a super heavyweight main eventer, and later as the voice of the World Wrestling Federation, as commentator and backstage manager during the 1980s and 1990s. He also portrayed the on-screen role of WWF president from 1995 to 1997. In professional wrestling, the staging area just behind the entrance curtain at an event, a position which Marella established and where he could often be found during WWF shows late in his career, is named the Gorilla position in his honor. Although remembered fondly by many viewers, Monsoon was voted worst television announcer a record 6 times by readers of the Wrestling Observer newsletter in the publication's annual awards poll. Career. Amateur career. Marella attended Jefferson High School in Rochester, New York, becoming a standout athlete in football, amateur wrestling, and track and field. At the time, he weighed over 300 pounds, 136 kilograms, and was affectionately called Tiny by his teammates. Marella was also a standout athlete after high school at Ithaca College in Ithaca, New York. He continued to wrestle, now weighing over 350 pounds, and took second in the 1959 NCAA Wrestling Championships. He also held several school athletic records, including an 18-second wrestling pin, and several track and field distinctions. He was inducted into the Ithaca College Athletic Hall of Fame in 1973. During the summers he was at Ithaca College, he was a construction worker in Rochester. One of the buildings he helped construct was the Rochester War Memorial Arena. He was inducted into the Section V Wrestling Hall of Fame in 2010 along with longtime childhood friend Frank Marotta, who gave a speech on his behalf. Marella's size and athletic ability attracted the attention of New York promoter Pedro Martinez, and he went to wrestle for Martinez after graduating from Ithaca in 1959. Gorilla was 6 feet 2 inches and weighed around 330 pounds when he first started wrestling professionally. By the end of his career he was up around 375 pounds, although he had weighed as much as 440 pounds at points. Early career. Marella originally billed himself as Gino Marella, a proud Italian-American babyface who would sing in Italian prior to his matches. Even after changing his ring name, Gino stuck as Marella's nickname among friends and colleagues, including Jesse Ventura, who would call Marella Gino on the air. Marella garnered moderate popularity, but soon realized that fans paid more attention to outlandish monster heel gimmicks, and they therefore made more money. Marella totally revamped his image, growing a long beard and billing himself as Gorilla Monsoon, a terrifying giant from Manchuria. Supposedly born on an isolated farm, Monsoon traveled across the countryside with a gypsy caravan wrestling bears, spoke no English, ate raw meat, and drank his victims' blood. The story given on WWF television was a bit different. His first manager, Bobby Davis, claimed to have discovered Monsoon in Manchuria wading nude in a mountain stream. The Monsoon character was far more successful, and fans were genuinely afraid of him, sparking a huge financial windfall for Marella. In the ring, Monsoon dominated opponents with vicious chops, the dreaded Manchurian splash, and his signature move, the airplane spin. Monsoon first wrestled Bruno Sammartino for the WWF World Championship on October 4, 1963, at Roosevelt Stadium, in Jersey City, New Jersey. Monsoon qualified by winning a partially televised ring wrestling magazine tournament, where he pinned Killer Buddy Austin in about a minute. Monsoon's disqualification win over Sammartino in New Jersey triggered a series of rematches at Madison Square Garden, and they would renew the feud again there in 1967. At the end of the Jersey City match, as Monsoon was sitting on the mat, a fan, not part of the show, jumped into the ring and broke the back of a wooden chair over Monsoon's head. WWF/WWF career. In 1963, Vincent J. McMahon reformed the Capital Wrestling Corporation into the Worldwide Wrestling Federation, WWF, currently known as World Wrestling Entertainment, breaking his territory away from the National Wrestling Alliance in an attempt to create a new national powerhouse. At the time, the WWF was the dominant wrestling promotion in the Northeast U.S. Marilla formed a friendship with McMahon, and became a 1/6 shareholder in the WWF, controlling bookings in several WWF territories. He also became one of the promotion's top heels, feuding with popular babyface champion Bruno Sammartino in sell-out arenas across the country. Despite his huge size, then in excess of 400 pounds, Monsoon had great agility and stamina, often wrestling Sammartino to 1-hour time limit draws. Monsoon teamed up with Killer Kowalski with success. In November 1963, they defeated Skull Murphy and Brute Bernard to win the U.S. Tag Team Championship. The following month, the duo lost the belts to the Tolos brothers, Chris and John, in Teaneck, New Jersey. Monsoon and Kowalski reunited in the late 1960s to defeat champion Bruno Sammartino and Victor Rivera 2-1 in Madison Square Garden, Indiana, a main event, marking the first, and possibly only time, that Sammartino and Rivera lost as a tag team. Monsoon also teamed with Professor Toru Tanaka, and they had a number of tag matches in Madison Square Garden. They won a main event on disqualification over Sammartino and Spiros Arion and later lost a Texas Death rematch to the same team. A year later, after defeating teams such as Al Costello and Dr. Bill Miller and Bobo Brazil and Earl Maynard, they went on to lose a main event to Sammartino and Victor Rivera. Monsoon had semi-main event matches with Spiros Arion as well as Bobo Brazil in his key heel years. In 1969, Monsoon became a babyface, befriending his former arch-rival when Sammartino rescued him from an attack by Crazy Luke Graham. The stage was set for Monsoon to become a fan favorite of the 1970s and feud with top heels of the decade, including champion superstar Billy Graham. He turned heel for a short time in 1977 and feuded with Andre the Giant, and the two engaged in a special boxing match in Puerto Rico, where Monsoon owned stock in the territory, with Andre winning the match. As a face, he had major wins in Madison Square Garden, including over Killer Kowalski as well as Big Cat Ernie Ladd. On June 2, 1976, a very famous incident occurred in Philadelphia involving boxing great Muhammad Ali. Ali, preparing for his upcoming crossover bout with Antonio Inoki in Japan later that month, jumped into the ring as Monsoon was concluding a short match against Baron Michael Cicluna that was being taped for the syndicated WWF TV show. Ali removed his shirt and started dancing around Monsoon while gesturing and throwing jabs at him, to which Monsoon responded by grabbing Ali in his airplane spin and slamming him to the mat. Marella would never reveal whether the incident was pre-planned. In an interview, he commented, "I never saw him before and haven't seen him since." A kind of torchbearer of the Vincent J. McMahon era WWF, Gorilla Monsoon was rapidly supported by New York audiences. On June 16, 1980, a young and up-and-coming Hulk Hogan was booked to face him at Madison Square Garden. At the time, Hogan was a widely followed heel character, while Monsoon was still a babyface. However, in order to push the new talent, McMahon told Hulk Hogan to beat Monsoon in under a minute. Upon that outcome, the crowd became livid and chased Hogan when he was leaving the arena, turning over his car. Policemen on horses had to be summoned to quiet the mob. As the 1980s began, Marella's in-ring career wound down. On August 23, Monsoon put his career on the line in a match against Ken Patera. Monsoon lost the match and only wrestled a few more matches, retiring several weeks later. He stayed true to his word and returned just 4 times, wrestling a 6-man tag team match at Madison Square Garden in 1981, a match in 1982 as a substitute for Andre the Giant, taking part in Big John Studd's Body Slam Challenge in 1983, and wrestling at WWC's 10th anniversary show in San Juan, Puerto Rico, also in 1983. The next phase of his career began, as the voice and backstage manager of WWF. After in-ring retirement, In the early 1980s, Vincent J. McMahon's son, Vincent K. McMahon, began assuming the reins of the promotion from his father. The elder McMahon asked his son to take care of longtime employees that had been loyal to him. The younger McMahon agreed, and in 1982, Vince bought Marilla's shares in the company in exchange for a guarantee of lifetime employment. As he had been to his father, Marilla became a close confidant of the younger McMahon, and assumed a prominent backstage role within the then WWF. Marilla would then become an announcer for the WWF starting in 1982. In addition, McMahon needed a new commentary team to head up his television programming, and installed Marilla with the recently retired Jesse the Body Ventura in 1985. Marilla and Ventura had great chemistry, with Ventura as the pro-heel color commentator and Marilla as the pro-face voice of reason. Marilla and Ventura called 5 of the first 6 WrestleManias together. The notable exception was WrestleMania 2, where Marilla commentated on the Chicago portion of the event with Gene Akerlund, Kathy Lee Crosby and Ernie the Cat Ladd, while Ventura commentated on the Los Angeles portion with Lord Alfred Hayes and Elvira, Mistress of the Dark. The Ventura/Monsoon duo of heel and babyface were the original broadcast duo, setting the standard which all who followed would attempt to emulate, especially Ventura's charismatic pro-heel character, which was a first of its kind, as previous wrestling commentators had almost always been in favor of the fan favorites. The pair commentated on all the WWF pay-per-views together with the exception of the first 2 SummerSlams and the 1990 Royal Rumble. At SummerSlam 1988, Ventura was the guest referee for the main event, so Monsoon commentated with superstar Billy Graham, while Ventura was paired with Tony Schiavone at both SummerSlam 1989 and the Royal Rumble. When Ventura left the WWF in mid-1990, he was replaced in commentary by Monsoon's primetime wrestling CO host, heel manager Bobby the Brain Heenan, another duo that subsequent wrestling commentary teams have often tried to emulate. The two also formed a close real-life friendship which Heenan often recalled fondly. In his WWE Hall of Fame induction speech at the 2004 ceremony, Heenan finished by saying that only one thing was missing, that he wished Monsoon was there. Other people who were often paired with Monsoon in the broadcast booth included Lord Alfred Hayes, Johnny Polo, superstar Billy Graham, Hillbilly Jim, Tony Schiavone, Jim Neidhart, Randy Savage, and Jim Ross. Monsoon called the first 8 WrestleManias from 1985 to 1992. Monsoon was the lead commentator on the syndicated show, WWF All-Star Wrestling, its successor WWF Wrestling Challenge, and the USA Network weekend show, WWF All-American Wrestling, as well as hosting the WWF weeknight show, Primetime Wrestling. Monsoon also served as CO host of Georgia Championship Wrestling on WTBS during McMahon's short-lived ownership of the promotion. Later career. Marella stepped down as the WWF's lead commentator at WrestleMania 9, where he was master of ceremonies, to make way for WCW recruit Jim Ross. He was phased out of Wrestling Challenge with Bobby Heenan and was moved to All-American Wrestling with Lord Alfred Hayes on April 11, 1993. He commentated with Jim Ross on WWF Radio for the broadcasts of SummerSlam 1993, Survivor Series 1993 and Royal Rumble 1994. He returned to the television broadcast team to call The King of the Ring 1994 with Randy Savage, as well as covering a few episodes of Monday Night Raw in 1993 and 1994 whenever Vince McMahon was unavailable. He was also called upon sporadically to return to Challenge from 1993 to 1995, calling action with Stan Lane, Ted DiBiase, and Ross again. Monsoon also did various work for Coliseum Video. Marilla's last pay-per-view commentary was for the 1994 Survivor Series, with Vince McMahon on play-by-play. Marella remained in his backstage role and appeared on air frequently, becoming the storyline WWF president in the summer of 1995, replacing Jack Tunney. The WWF president's role was to arbitrate disputes between wrestlers and make matches, similar to the current WWE general managers. It was during this time that, after he was attacked and, kayfabe, severely injured by Vader, that Roddy Piper became interim WWF president until WrestleMania 12, when Marella assumed the position again. Health concerns forced him to relinquish this role during the summer of 1997. Instead of naming a replacement, the WWF decided to retire the role of president and introduced Sergeant Slaughter as the new WWF commissioner in August 1997. Marella's health deteriorated from there. In late 1998, Marella returned briefly to call the international version of WWF Superstars. In 1999, Marella appeared in a WWF Attitude commercial featuring Freddie Blassie, Ernie Ladd, Pat Patterson, and Killer Kowalski. His final appearance on WWF television before his death was as one of the 3 judges for a Brawl for All contest between Bart Gunn and Butterbean at WrestleMania 15. Because of his frail appearance and rapidly declining health, the camera only focused on Monsoon during his introduction as a judge, for which he received a standing ovation. Death. Marella died at the age of 62 on October 6, 1999, of heart failure brought on by complications of diabetes, at his home in Willingboro Township, New Jersey. His body was buried next to his sons, Joey Marella, at Lakeview Memorial Park in Cinnaminson, New Jersey. Tributes. In a tribute that aired on October 11, 1999, on an episode of Raw is War from the Georgia Dome, McMahon described Marella as one of the greatest men I have ever known. WCW commentator Tony Schiavone acknowledged Marella's death on the October 11, 1999, episode of WCW Monday Nitro. Bobby Heenan insisted on doing a tribute to Marella, even though Marella never worked for WCW. Heenan said on air, "Gorilla will be sadly missed. Now he was one big tough man. He was a decent honest man. And we're all gonna miss him very much. And you know the pearly gates in heaven? It's now gonna be called the Gorilla position. Goodbye, my friend." Robert Marella was inducted into the WWF Hall of Fame, class of 1994, on June 9. When Heenan was inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame in 2004, he ended his acceptance speech with a very emotional, "There's only one thing missing, I wish Monsoon was here." In 2007, when Anthony Carelli made his debut with WWE, as a tribute to Marella, he was given the ring name Santino Marella. Personal life. Marella was married to his wife, Maureen, for more than 40 years and had 3 children, Sharon, born 1960, Joey, adopted, 1963-1994, and Valerie, born 1966. Victor Quiñones, 1959-2006, was listed in Gorilla's obituary as his son as well. This was never confirmed officially by Gorilla, but the Marella family acknowledged this after Gorilla's death. On July 4, 1994, his adopted son, Joey Marella, fell asleep at the wheel and died in a car accident on the New Jersey Turnpike, while returning from refereeing a WWF event in Ocean City, Maryland. He was not wearing a seatbelt at the time of the crash. In early 1994, Marella CO hosted the short-lived morning variety/game show Bingo Break on WBFF in Baltimore, Maryland, which also featured fellow WWF on-air personality Sean Mooney as the bingo caller. The program did not acknowledge Marella's wrestling career, and as such, he was billed on camera as Bob Marella rather than as Gorilla Monsoon. Championships and accomplishments.